I am Laura Dixon, and you are listening to the Naturally Thin for Life podcast, episode number 170, Secondhand Thoughts. Welcome to the Naturally Thin for Life podcast. I'm going to teach you how to get out of your diet brain so that you too can be naturally thin for life. No counting, restricting, or obsessing. I am going to take the mystery out of it for you so that you can become naturally thin starting today. Are you ready? Let's do this. Hello, friends. Welcome to this week's podcast episode. Today, we are going to talk about second-hand thoughts. So recently, I was reading a book completely unrelated to weight loss and losing weight, and it's a book called A Different Kind of Teacher by John Taylor Gatto, and he just talks about in the book how to think about and maybe question sometimes how we are educating our kids. And in that book, he has this idea or concept that he talks about as pre-thought thoughts, meaning a lot of times when we're in school, we hear pre-thought thoughts. We hear someone else's thoughts, even if it's something that's completely open to interpretation or an opinion. And we are often taught to memorize these pre-thought thoughts and therefore to not question what we are learning. Because in the questioning process, we get to find truth. We get to find evidence. We get to decide what we want to believe about our lives and about what we are learning. And so when I was reading this, it just really made me think about how many secondhand thoughts we all take on when it comes to losing weight, when it comes to living freely and peacefully in your naturally thin body. And when we don't question all of these secondhand thoughts, and I'm going to, of course, teach you and give you some ways to think about your secondhand thoughts so that you can question them and decide if you want to keep thinking them or not. But what happens so often is we don't even realize then that we have a choice. If you have struggled with your weight since you were 10 years old and you start to believe that, well, my mom struggled with her weight, I struggle with my weight, I've always struggled, I'm never going to live in a body that feels good, it feels energized, that feels alive, that feels nourished, and I've tried all of these diets for the past several decades. Sometimes we don't even realize that we are living in a secondhand thought that you're never going to get to your goal weight. And when we are dieting, we learn so many of these secondhand thoughts. And so for a lot of us, I was just thinking back upon my own school journey and education journey. And from infancy, for a lot of us, we are taught to follow the quote unquote experts. The experts lay out the path. They tell us what we should do, what we should not do, what we need to learn, what we need to not learn, how we should memorize, how we should behave, who we should listen to, who we should not listen to, that we should just be kind of like good little girls who get the A and go and maybe get married and have kids and have a nice life. Like that's the path taught to many of us, not all of us, but many of us by quote unquote experts. And so for a lot of us, we see something we want in our life. So we see maybe a career we want, or we see an amount of money we want to have, or we see a weight that we want, or we see a toned body that we want. And so, because for so many of us, we're taught this from very early on that how we get what we want is we find an expert, and an expert will tell us exactly what to do along the way, as if there is only one exact path that everyone must take in order to reach the destination. And when we have this mentality, when we have this thought process, we never question any of it then. And maybe there are parts of the path that we do want, that there are things that we hear from quote unquote experts that we're like, oh, that makes sense. That makes sense for me to do that, to think that way, to feel that way. And we decide that that is something we want to do. But for so many of us, especially when it comes to dieting and losing weight, we don't ever question what we have been taught. And so when we carry all of this into dieting, we are just kind of like pre-programmed to believe that the experts know better than us. And I remember watching The Biggest Loser. I don't know if any of you watched The Biggest Loser, but I was obsessed with it for years because I was obsessed with like losing weight. I'm like, how do these people do it? I just want to learn all of the things. And I just remember watching person after person after person wanting to lose weight. And I mean, they exercise hours and hours and hours a day. And then they have nutritionists and dietitians coming in and helping them and teaching them and doing all of this work. And they're in the, like, I think they call it like the camp or like the Biggest Loser weight loss camp. They go off site to like a remote location where they're all there together, right? And they're competing against different teams to see who can lose the most weight. And it looks torturous. Like the people are crying, people are throwing up, people are like having nervous breakdowns. And they're losing weight, and sometimes they'll go through a week or two and they won't lose any weight, and they just get on the scale in front of everybody. And you're watching, obviously, so not just in front of the people that they're competing with, but in front of everyone watching, and they get on the scale, and, you know, sometimes they're in tears, and then sometimes they're overjoyed because they lost like 12 pounds in that week, and it's this huge emotional roller coaster. And then you get to watch them compete, see who wins, and then they all go back home and kind of reintegrate into their lives. And then you often watch them, and it's maybe a couple months. I can't remember if it was 90 days or I think it was 6 months, somewhere between 6 months and a year. They come back for like a reunion and they see how much more weight they've lost. And sometimes some of them have lost no more weight. Sometimes some of them have gained weight. And sometimes some of them have lost weight, and a lot of them end up putting weight back on years later. And I remember just thinking, these people are following someone else's path to losing weight. Like it's clearly not working for them. But these people just believe, but these are the experts. These are the people telling me what to do. And I remember watching, and they would all maybe be eating yogurt or cheese. And there were times I'm like, but what if that doesn't feel good for that person? Or they would be doing particular exercise routines in a gym, and the trainers clearly loved the gym. And these people would be exercising in the gym. And I remember thinking, but like, what if they don't like working out in the gym? Like, can't they do something else? Like, what if they just went for a walk and really thought about what food felt good in their body? And what if they stopped tracking everything? And what if they stopped making it so torturous? But it just was so evident in watching that, the mentality of like, but there's an expert. And so therefore they know better than me. And therefore I can never know when, what, and how much to eat for my body because someone else must know better than I do. And that is the fallacy of every single diet, is that someone else knows better than you when, what, and how much to eat for your optimal body weight. And when we believe that to be true, that is the most predominant secondhand thought that I see amongst women wanting to lose weight, wanting to be naturally thin, not wanting to diet, not wanting to follow someone else's protocol for their unique body, is that we have just adopted this secondhand thought that someone else knows better than us. Someone else must know when, what, and how much to eat for our ideal body weight. And so I want you to think about for a minute just the difference between an expert and a guide. So I think of an expert as someone who's saying, my path is the right path. You must do this and not deviate. Versus a guide who believes, I'm going to help you find the right path for you. A guide may have some perspective, they may have some wisdom, they may help you see your own obstacles so that you can decide what's right for you. But a guide does not believe that they are the expert of your life, right? You're the expert of your own life. It is not possible for someone else to be the expert of your life. But we believe, like as a culture, as a society, without question, that there are experts that know better than us how to live our lives. And I personally don't believe that's true for me and for any of you. I believe that you are the expert of your own mind. You are the expert of your own body, that your body wants you to feel as optimal, alive and vibrant and energized and fit and strong as possible for you. And now there are tools to help you find that way of being in your own life. But there is no single human on this planet who has the exact way of eating that is perfect for you every single day until you die, other than you. It's not possible. There is no expert that can tell you exactly when, what, and how much to eat that will allow you to live peacefully and freely at your dream weight. Only you can know what that is. You are the only expert in your life. You may find wisdom, you may find perspective, you may find ideas that you want to try from guides, but not from the place that they know better than you. So to me, quote unquote expert advice is always a contradiction in and of itself, because expert advice is based on the premise that someone else has the path that will work for you and they know better than you whether or not it'll work, how it will work, exactly what to do along the way. And so many of us fall into this trap when we're dieting that there is some expert path that we just need to find, like the magic pill, the magic routine, the perfect habit, the perfect way of eating, the perfect food plan, the perfect exercise regime. If we just find that perfect expert path, then we'll be able to reach our dream weight. But it just isn't true. And so I want you to get out a piece of paper, put it in your phone, or maybe just think about them. I want you to write down the 5 most prevalent second-hand thoughts, meaning they've simply been passed down to you and you haven't questioned them so that you get to decide. And remember, there may be quote-unquote expert advice that you understand, that you question, and then you're like, oh, that actually makes some sense. And I've experimented on my own body and that feels true for me. And so I'm going to give you one example and then I'm going to tell you what I want you to do to challenge all of these secondhand thoughts that have been simply passed down to you that you've adopted without ever questioning. So for me, I remember reading a book about food combining and different pH levels of food. And in there, she talked about how fruit has so much water and how the digestive process can make our bodies feel kind of backed up. It can start to feel gassy and bubbly and kind of like fruit is fermenting if we eat it on top of a non-fruit, a non-kind of quickly digestible meal. So imagine eating a steak with some sweet potatoes and then having a bunch of raspberries on top. And she talked about how that can potentially not make us feel so great. But when we're dieting, we often learn that, well, eat raspberries instead of ice cream for dessert or something like that. Or, distract yourself from wanting something sweet with having some fruit. And I remember thinking, oh, that makes sense to me intellectually. Now, let me go and experiment on my own body. And so I remember having like a heavier meal and then eating fruit afterwards and being like, oh, whoa. I do actually feel a little gassy. I do actually feel like there's something kind of like fermenting and bubbling in my body. And then I started eating fruit just on an empty stomach. And I was like, oh, that feels so good. It feels so much better in my body. And so in that example, there was some quote unquote expert advice, but I questioned it. I experimented on my own body and I found what was true for my unique body. And now I can tell you though, when I'm pregnant, I eat berries like they're no one's business. Like I eat so many berries. I eat them all the time. I eat them regardless of what I've just eaten. And part of it is because I'm just like not feeling as good as usual and eating the berries all the time. They just feel good. And so that expert advice, I don't really apply when I'm pregnant. And so the point that I want to help you see is that there may be expert advice, but you want to use that and question it and experiment and understand if it's applicable for you and your body so that it doesn't become a bunch of secondhand thoughts walking around in your brain that you've never questioned and that you don't even want in there. I want you to imagine going into your closet right now And all of the clothes in your closet are secondhand clothes that you never picked out. You would be like, what? Where? I don't even like that color. I don't like that fit. I don't like that length. Like these pants, they don't even fit. They're like way too big, or they're way too small, or they like go up halfway up my calf because I'm so tall and I needed the long version, right? Imagine going into your closet and having only secondhand clothes that you never even went out and bought. We would be like, what? That doesn't make any sense. Yet we do that in our own brains when it comes to many things, but especially when it comes to losing weight and living in our dream body. So I want you to write down, what are the 5 most prevalent secondhand thoughts that you have that you've adopted from experts. Maybe it is something like, if I don't eat frequently, I'm going to slow my metabolism down. Yet at the same time, you have another secondhand thought that says, I need to force myself to fast in order for my body to become a fat burning machine. Or maybe you have a thought that it's hard to lose weight, that in order to lose weight, I need to get really serious and be superhuman and be super meticulous, and I need to count 1,200 calories a day and I can never deviate ever. Maybe you think that I need to get up early every single morning to work out, and if I miss a day, then I'm going to lose weight. Maybe I need to never, ever allow myself to eat carbs. Maybe you think you need to eat less than 50 grams of carbs a day in order to lose weight. Maybe you think you need to drink 5 liters of water to lose weight, that you can't lose weight if you're tired, that you can't lose weight if you're breastfeeding, that you can't lose weight if you have an autoimmune diagnosis. Whatever it is for you, I want you to those are just a lot of common ones that I hear. I want you to write down, what are the 5 most prevalent, quote unquote, expert advice, secondhand thoughts that you've just taken on without ever questioning. And then I want you to really question all of them and decide if you want to keep those secondhand thoughts. Because the other thing about these secondhand thoughts, when it comes from expert advice that we've never questioned, we've never experimented, we've never understood if that is actually true for our body, is that there is always, always, always a contradiction to be found when you haven't decided if you actually want to believe that and if that is true for your body. So on one hand, we may adopt a secondhand thought that we need to eat every couple of hours so that we don't get too hungry, because if we get too hungry, we can't trust ourselves, because if we get too hungry, then we're going to eat in a way that's completely out of our control, and then we're going to binge, and then we're never going to lose weight ever. Right? That may be one kind of thought process from a quote unquote expert advice. But then at the same token, we're like, well, but there's like this intermittent fasting thing. So maybe I need to force myself to eat in a 4-hour eating window and then not eat for the other 20 hours of the day. Maybe that's how I lose weight. But that doesn't make sense when I compare it to this other line of thinking where I need to eat every couple of hours because otherwise I'm going to eat in a way that's out of control and not be able to lose weight. Those are both quote unquote expert opinions, expert advice, but they contradict. The only reason they contradict is because they're secondhand thoughts, and they're not thoughts that you have questioned and decided whether or not they are true for you. I can tell you, for me personally, when I am in certain phases of my cycle, when I am ovulating, when I have my period, when I am pregnant, when I am breastfeeding, that pattern of eating is very different than when I'm not. And I may eat way more frequently during all of those seasons of my life that I just mentioned versus maybe today I might eat twice a day, only because that's just when my body is hungry. And so when we don't question the quote unquote expert advice we've been given, we fall into this trap of not really knowing how to listen and trust our own bodies. And our bodies, contrary to some popular belief, they're not machines that run the same every single day. They're not machines that eat exactly 1,200 calories every single day. No, some days maybe we need way more than that energy-wise, and I never suggest you count calories, but just thinking about the energy that our body needs, some days they might need way more than that, and some days, who knows, maybe they need less than that. I don't know what it is for your body, but to think we are like a robotic machine that needs exactly the same thing every day is crazy and not any single one of us has ever had that experience. I've never heard from one woman ever that's like, yes, I eat exactly 1,200 calories and I count them every single day. And my body feels great and I never feel restricted and I never feel deprived. And I never have any life event that comes up that changes what my body needs, right? If we don't sleep or we have a kid that was up or we're sick, right? When we're sick, our body's energy needs are totally different. And so I just want you to question any and all of the expert advice that you are living by that is simply a secondhand thought that you've never even thought to question before. So write down, what are the 5 most prevalent secondhand thoughts that you think that are kind of running and deciding your food choices, your weight loss journey? And then I want you to also write down, what are the 5 most prevalent secondhand thoughts that you've just adopted about your weight loss journey, maybe more in general? Maybe it's something like, well, my mom struggled, so I will struggle. I am big boned, or I just have an athletic build, or losing weight is hard, or it's not possible for me to be naturally thin, or I haven't done it yet, so I'm probably never going to do it. Or maybe my weight is just genetic and I'm never going to be able to lose weight. Really understand, what are the other secondhand thoughts that you've adopted. Think about it as one kind of 5 set of expert advice secondhand thoughts, and then 1 set of 5 just general secondhand thoughts that you think about yourself in relation to losing weight and being naturally thin. And I think about being naturally thin, I define it as simply being at your body's ideal, optimal weight. The weight that just feels so good, where you feel energized and alive and vibrant, and you feel as optimal as possible on that given day. So when you get 3 hours of sleep, you're not going to feel as optimal as possible that day as you did when you've been getting 8 hours of sleep for a month on end. And so being naturally thin means you feel as optimal as possible every single day. And how that feels will vary day to day. Some other secondhand thoughts that I hear from people that they tell me is that, well, the only way that I can lose weight is to never eat carbs again, or the only way I can lose weight is to feel really restricted and to not go to social events and to avoid my favorite foods, or the only way I can lose weight is to have more discipline and to use a lot of willpower, or I just need more self-control. Those are all secondhand thoughts. Imagine like going into your closet and all you see are your expert advice secondhand thoughts, and then all you see on one side and then all you see on the other side are your secondhand thoughts, maybe from your childhood, from some diet, from some past experience, from what someone told you, from what our society says. You would go into that closet and be like, I don't want to wear any of those clothes. Like, none of that looks very vibrant and fun, and like they just don't even fit my body. So you are so capable of so much more than you give yourself credit for when we don't question these secondhand thoughts. So I want you to just question all of these thoughts and ask yourself, are they actually something that you want to keep thinking? You get to decide if you want to keep thinking these secondhand thoughts. And so many of us limit ourselves as to what we are capable of doing in our life in general, but especially when it comes to losing weight in a way that's right for us. We limit ourselves on what's possible because we've just put all these barriers up of all of these secondhand thoughts. So then I want you to ask yourself, what if you could design this closet with no secondhand thoughts that you didn't deliberately put in there? So there may be some secondhand thoughts that you're like, oh, I heard that once, I adopted it, and I actually find that to be true for me. But I really, really want you to question all of them and then actually really decide and love putting the clothes back, putting the secondhand thoughts back into your closet that you really want. What if, I'm going to give you some of my thoughts and you can decide if you want to adopt these secondhand thoughts from me. What if your body is designed to be naturally thin? What if it is easier to be naturally thin than not be naturally thin? Because what if being naturally thin means you get to feel alive and vibrant and energized and you never miss out on any food because you just love feeling so incredible? And that feeling of incredibleness in your body is what drives when, what, and how much to eat. What if you could lose weight peacefully and rapidly? What if you never miss out on anything because you just love feeling so good? And what if you could do all of this even if I want you to think even if ... even if you have a diagnosis, even if you have an autoimmune disease, even if you're pregnant, even if you have food sensitivities, even if you're going through menopause, what if your body wants you to be at your optimal weight? What if your body wants you to feel as alive, vibrant, and energized? And the only reason it's so hard is because you've adopted expert advice, secondhand thoughts, and just kind of general societal secondhand thoughts. What if none of that was really true? And what if you could be naturally thin no matter how long you've struggled? So I want you to question all of your secondhand thoughts, all of the thoughts you've heard from any expert, that you've heard or adopted from other people in your life, or that you have even adopted because of your own past experience. Like, well, I've struggled my whole life, so there's no way I could ever lose weight. That is optional for you. How do you want to think about your body, your weight loss? If you could design your closet in any way you wanted, what are those articles of clothing? What are those thoughts that you would put in deliberately and on purpose? And why not do this? Sometimes my husband and I will discuss about our quote unquote realism, where he will often say to me, well, I'm just realistic. And I say to him too, well, I am realistic too. I'm just like realistic about doing things that are a stretch, to really push myself to see what I'm capable of. And so I imagine for you and for me, when I'm feeling on a day-to-day basis emotionally, when I'm feeling possibility, when I'm feeling curious, when I'm feeling wonder, when I'm feeling in love with life, why not feel that every single day until I die? Because if you're anything like me, I kind of at my core am a little bit pessimistic. I am skeptical. I am very grounded in like data and numbers, and very grounded to like the reality of this world we live in. And so I don't ever imagine I'm going to lose any of that. Like I almost have, if I think about like the scale where you balance the two sides, I almost by like nature have extra of all of that realistic stuff. And sometimes it gets in my way because it puts self-imposed limitations on what I am actually capable of, because I just like live innately so much in this like heavy quote unquote reality. And so what if you put in your closet thoughts that you want to have about your weight loss journey? And I want you to imagine every day feeling possibility, feeling experimentation, feeling trust with your body, feeling curious, feeling certainty, feeling limitless, feeling in wonder, feeling in awe, feeling adoration for your body. I want you to imagine feeling that way more often than not every single day until you die. What would that experience be like versus how so many of us feel when we're living by these secondhand thoughts, versus feeling defeated, feeling discouraged, feeling hopeless, feeling trapped? And when you think about dying, I know for those of you that listen to the podcast, you have heard me talk a lot about how I think about dying and being on my deathbed. So I want you to imagine being on your deathbed and reflecting back on your life and looking at your life and thinking that you spent more time feeling possibility, feeling curious, feeling wonder, feeling in love with life, feeling connected to your body, feeling trust for your body, versus looking back on your life and feeling the defeated and the discouraged and the hopeless and the trapped. I want to look back on my life and be more of the former, being more curious and experimental and feeling that possibility and that limitless for my own life. Like there's no harm in that, because I'm plenty of the realisticness. And I know so many of you can relate to that. So for all of you that have so many of these secondhand thoughts, I think so many of us just do, I want you to question them and decide if you would put them back in your closet. Would you put that expert advice back in your closet? Would you put that secondhand thought from your mother, from your partner, from your kids? Would you put that back in your closet if you could choose? Because you can choose. You can decide exactly what those articles of clothes are in your closet. I want you to decide them consciously and deliberately. And if you are listening to this episode real time and you want to dive deeper into this and you really want to see what you're capable of in your weight loss journey and you want to lose weight peacefully and rapidly and bust through all of these secondhand thoughts that so many of us have, I want to invite you to join the Naturally Thin for Life membership before April 1st, because starting right away live on April 1st, we are having our 10 pound in 30-day challenge. And with that challenge, I am going to challenge your brain to question all of those secondhand thoughts, all of the expert advice, secondhand thoughts, all of the secondhand thoughts you've been passed down from anyone in your life, any of those secondhand thoughts that don't serve you, to help you decide what you want to believe, how you want to eat, how you want to feel in your body, how you want to lose weight. I am going to guide you and give you tools to become the expert in your own weight loss journey, in your own life, because that is what we all want. You don't want another diet or meal plan or someone else telling you what to do. It's exhausting. You want, if you're here listening to this, you want to be the expert in your own body, the expert in your own food decisions, the expert in your own weight loss. That's the freedom and the peace. And when you use the tools that you learn as a part of this 10 pound and 30-day challenge and in the Naturally Thin for Life membership, you learn how to be the expert of your own body. You learn how to decide when, what, and how much to eat for your naturally thin weight, for your naturally thin body, for your optimal dream weight. And it's a skill that you learn. And that skill then allows the fluidity of life to create change, because when, what, and how much you eat today is going to be different than when, what, and how much you eat tomorrow, a week from now, and for sure 10 years from now. So if you're ready to finally put any diet struggle behind you for good and live peacefully in your naturally thin body, I invite you to join us inside of the Naturally Thin for Life membership before April 1st so that you can come with us for the 10 pound in 30-day challenge, where you're going to challenge all of these secondhand thoughts that you have and really decide what you want that closet of your naturally thin journey to look like. All right, my friends, I hope you all have a beautiful week. I will talk with you all next time. Friend, if you are loving what you are learning here on the podcast, you have to come check out my Naturally Thin for Life program. It is my on-demand lifetime access program where I teach you brand new concepts not taught here on the podcast. And I will walk you through exactly how to implement all of the tools I teach you here so that they become just a part of you. You will learn exactly how to understand your specific brain and your specific body so that you become naturally thin for the rest of your life and you no longer struggle with your weight. Inside of the Naturally Thin for Life program, you can also receive live help so that you consistently make progress and reach your goal. I will teach you how to accelerate your naturally thin journey in a sustainable way so that the change becomes permanent. The best part is that it's risk-free. You either love it or I will give you your money back. If you are ready to finally be naturally thin for life, join us at lauradixoncoaching.com/work with me. That's LAURADIXON coaching.com and click on the Work With Me tab. I cannot wait to see you there.